What up, guys? It's Shani with Healing Elements. How are you? And blessings, of course, with a lot of positive vibes sent your way. Coming to you again with another topic that I am fascinated with and wrote about in my journal. It is about, a controversial debate that ensues for a lot of people, actually. Regarding the correlation between spiritual awakening and diagnosis or perceived psychosis or mental illness. When we explore the entanglement as well as direct correlation between Kundalini energy rising and diagnosis of actual psychosis and psychological disorders, it is extremely intriguing how linked the two are. It can be a very power-packed subject. So reading this journal entry, of course, I just want to provide this as usual for you guys as food for thought. My personal belief, just to get that out of the way, is that our failure as a society to recognize spiritual awakening as a fact is pitiful, 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 and that's my personal opinion. I just feel to deny individuals exploration of this onset, of spiritual awakening of Kundalini when experiencing these ascension symptoms is a power and control mechanism that those pulling the strings will use. Instead, programming code is what they use, and they distribute it and have since you were born, among the masses of society, and encourage people not to believe their true selves, not to believe yourselves. The program, their agenda is to categorize the individual as flawed with a fancy mental health diagnosis code, and to just then force feed prescribe pharmaceutical drugs as the only cure for your apparently flawed brain, right? It's the matrix type scenario, these matrix type codes or whatever you want to analyze it and whatever speaks to your truth that we're receiving, all these messages we're receiving, programming, sometimes in adverse situations, religious brainwashing, all kind of things. We are fed beliefs that others want us to believe rather than let us explore the potential for ourselves. So, most of these messages we receive, this programming from day one, first day we're born, are false narratives for sure. Whether that means false narratives in the concrete sense for everybody universally, that's to be debated, but a false narrative to you because you didn't choose this belief, you didn't come to the conclusion on your own. So when you go through this awakening and people are telling you you have a diagnosis, it could be the fact. You could potentially, in fact, have a diagnosis and a treatment that would be appropriate. However, you are the one that needs to align with your true self, really reflect, come to the conclusion with your own intuitive guidance and compass about whether or not the diagnosis is a false narrative or is the truth in a company with a spiritual awakening. That's another thing. I feel like they come hand in hand a lot. Spiritual awakening and, feelings of unfolding, undoing, psychosis, diagnoses, things like that. Suffocating this healing potential is the only thing that can come about suppressing, the exploration of either of those. I feel like it would be silly for me to say, never go to a psychologist, never get a diagnosis. That would be silly, right? And I feel on the same front, it's silly to say, never explore holistic medicine, never explore homeopathic modalities. I feel like that's so silly. So the spiritual awakening is a big deal. It's the onset of Kundalini energy, or of course, words are just something that humans, gave credence to. It's just a verb, so you can replace anything within spiritual awakening or Kundalini energy. It is what it is, and if you understand, then you know that it is the onset of this flow of intense realization of waking up to a truth that you knew was already there inside your soul, and it's this feeling, this description I'm trying to put it eloquently into words. It creates a set of circumstances, experience, and these circumstances are felt by the individual in a very profound way. They are sometimes so vastly, different of circumstances and experiences from what the norm is in your life, what you're accustomed to, that you may yourself at first believe what you're going through is not real. And you may, in fact, because of that fact or doubt or whatnot, seek professional help, which is always recommended. I feel like it's a blend, and for you to decide once you have everything on the table, like I did, going through the clinical type of mental health arena with my anxiety disorder, and then also doing this, I had to come to my own conclusion. So what will happen, you may report your circumstances, your experiences, along with all kind of physical and mental afflictions that go wrong, along with this awakening, awareness, ascension, to certain psychologists, pathologists, or perhaps psychiatric care, right? But depending on what clinician that you're dealing with is definitely dependent on how much they are going to help you or how much they're going to hinder you in growth with this awareness. I really feel to let your authentic self be the only one that programs your personal beliefs, once again, from now on, is key. Of course, the clinician, if they completely think that spirituality and spiritual awakening is rubbish, they simply will chalk it up to a world gone mad with mental disorders, and you then, unfortunately, quickly become, to them, those type of clinicians, just words on a chart at times, labeled into categories, then kind of used as a crash test dummies of sorts, being a chemistry experiment. They ask you to take pills. You're asked to take a red pill or this blue pill, but it does not wake you up like Neo. It does the opposite. Keeps you sleeping, sleepwalking. It is just a tragedy, in my opinion, so pitiful to try to subdue such a natural human being's rite of passage within this physical existence, this rite of passage of spiritual growth. I feel also it may, in fact, be much more common to develop or to become psychotic or have, a developed psychological disorder, onset during the vigorous suppression of the awakening process. So that's key. I feel like by having outside sources and society's programming suppress the acknowledgement even of this process that is, again, human nature. It's a rite of passage. I feel like that itself can be so stressful. The conflicted thoughts that you have about this process, maybe you literally are strong mind. However, someone very close to you or specifically who you trust is assuring you that you are just gone nuts and, this may be schizophrenia, that you're not, having dreams that are precognitive. I mean, they might be telling you all that crap that people do. It's evil, no, you're not supposed to do yoga, that's false god, idol. It's just so silly because I feel like that itself, whether or not you choose to go, with either path, either holistic or medicated or blend both, I feel like the total vigorous suppression of this awakening process causes a lot of these diagnosis, disorders, psychotic episodes, things like that. Because pretty much if you guys are told by certain members of society that you can heal yourself medically by taking a pill, it's second nature. Many of us opt to try that road because it is the easiest, because awakening and going within, drawing within, and learning about our true authentic self, learning about what spirituality is to us personally, just us and our higher power. The Kundalini experience is not a path of least resistance, right? So there are totally so many legit diagnoses out there, okay? Let me put that out there. I definitely feel that way. And also people are given false diagnosis and false therapy and pharmaceuticals, in my opinion. I feel like it's both. Being told to deny, though, the notion that this inner turmoil or experiences is caused by energy blockages within us is truly a shame, I feel. I feel like the clinicians almost want to scribble more and more statements with more and more diagnostic codes about, how you were curious about what chakras were and whether or not that holds any credence on your experiences that you're emotionally reporting to them. I feel like they do not gravitate, some of them, to the truth that some of us that go along with spiritual awakening come to the conclusion about, that we hold energy, bound up, like stagnant but powerfully tense, like a tense muscle, like a Charlie horse. This energy gets stuck within our life forces flow, okay? And I believe that when it gets stuck, it impends us and it causes physical or emotional pain. And thus, when I feel Kundalini starts flowing profusely, you really know that you're going through it. You are kind of pushed off that cliff, that waterfall, faced with a more challenging task, which is, dealing with healing on a long-term scale, on a long-term basis, getting long-term solutions to remove any toxic energy that is, flooding your life, or, purging through and getting stuck in points of your chakras or other places in your physical vessel. It is just filling that, life-flowing freeway of energy with pollution. I really do believe. Kundalini, is essentially a word in simplified terms just for the essence, the energy, the, particles, whether like nanoscientific or, subatomic or whatever it is, right? This is the actual substance that is making us feel the way that we feel. Perhaps I love science shows that show the correlation between what some, ancient Chinese medicine, women and men practice, acupressure and acupuncture, and different, theories they have about energy blockages and things like that. They are now correlating it with sometimes the exact route that a hormone, a certain hormone or a chemical, is released from the brain. So it's like, it's all correlated, guys. In my opinion, I feel like it's equal parts to both. So I feel like if one needs to be balanced out, that's what it is. So I feel like it's such a shame to deny this energy surge and the way that Kundalini, energy rising and ascension makes us feel. When we rise to these kind of higher vibrational dimensions, what should be acknowledged by providers, instead of like the rush to diagnose people as these one certain things, is a task in which they assign self-exploration, right? With freedom. I feel like it would eliminate the, vigorous turmoil of you trying to fit into a peg and not make your own decision, just take what everybody else is giving to you, right? It's confusing. So I feel that there is just so many, in the camp of the providers who really believe that ascension or spiritual awakening or new age practices is a total hoax and just some sort of, positive subliminal programming, right? And it can be clinically predicted by numbers, all this stuff. In truth, truly, ascending, spiritual awakening, the path to enlightenment, this is a legitimate, intimate experience and an actual tie-in, a blending, a feeling of committed relationship with, both the creator, whoever that is to you, the universe, and all of us, our soul family members, collectively alive and well and on the other side. I feel like, again, suppressing the acknowledgement of this experience and Kundalini rising and chakra blockages and suppressing any legitimacy with vibrational medicine use just simply does no good, and it prevents our own capability to heal, our own capacity to draw within and meditate and learn from our elders or others who have practiced this and are masters of it. I feel that this overall programming by society to just jump to the easy solution for them is just to get their, their patient out of their office, collect the money, put the diagnostic codes. It's just one thing off their checklist, and I feel that it, it lends credence to what I'm going to leave you off with. When we deal with, let's say, a holistic healer or a card reader or anyone who does what I do in any kind of modality, it is such a more intimate experience. It's kind of like seeing a midwife over a obstetrician. They're both great, but a midwife is going to really have a more intimate and compassionate approach, and be able to maybe come and sleep over your house and have a slumber party, and your OBGYN is just not going to do that kind of thing, right? So there's nothing wrong, again, with either path. I just feel like they would be best when we're talking about, medicinal therapy with any kind of anxiety, depressive disorder, or, again, psychiatric outburst or psychosis onset or psychological personality disorder, I feel like not all but some should definitely be re-evaluated and really, really, really studied. I feel like we should blend both, the scientific approach. We do know that some medicines help people a lot, especially with chemical imbalances or things like that. And whether or not even that's to be said too, if it's subliminal, if it's the placebo effect, we don't know. But that being said, we do know that we have a feeling. We can, do a litmus test on our own self. With holistic healing, we feel a result. So both of them, whether or not they're placebo effects, does it really matter? To me, I know that it's not. But does it really matter? Because if it heals and helps us, what would it matter how we are able to achieve that contentment, or at least that new way of switching our perspective to handle things a little bit more, easily. So you guys, I think that the bottom line is we have a divine right to experience this human nature rite of passage. We should definitely explore on our own, if we are even told by clinicians, explore all the positive benefits of human nature and all of its potential in the ancient wisdom. Don't let any religion or sect tell you that by being curious and looking into theology around the world at different time periods, even if it's ancient Greco-Roman stories, mythology, or things like that. I feel like everything, just like the fairy tale oracle card deck I have, guys, and the fairy tales I always preach, it all has a meaning. It all has substance. Something is in there, like a little breadcrumb that will inspire you and basically set you off on your own trail, your own life path, your own self-discovery. And that is key. It's always what I tell clients I work with and people in general. It's so key to be inspired. You're not copying somebody else by perhaps going into the same field as them, or writing a book on the same subject as them, or being inspired by a set of tarot cards and wanting to do it yourself. That is not copying. What it is beautiful. It's mentorship. It's having that elder pass down that wisdom so that you may heal others, and we pass the torch accordingly. Right? We're like Prometheus. We want to share our light. We don't want to hoard it. So guys, I really send you positive vibes. I appreciate you listening to, my description, my thoughts, my journal entry about, how I feel like spiritual awakening and diagnosis of different, psychiatric and psychological issues have a correlation, at the very least, just a correlation. And wanted to throw out my opinions and food for thought. So, we need to grow spiritually, and we need to definitely defend against any kind of force feeding, like from the one size fits all cure of our mental health. So guys, I wish you nothing but love, light, and positive vibes.